There's a plant growing in the cracks of your driveway that contains more omega-3 fatty acids than fish oil. It survives without water, without soil, without permission. For 4,000 years, it fed civilizations from China to Greece to the Americas. Then we turned it into public enemy number one. We created an entire industry around its destruction. We convinced millions to poison it while spending $60 billion annually on supplements containing inferior versions of what this plant offers for free. This is the story of the weed that refused to die and the industry that can't afford to let you remember its name. Welcome to Veiled Earth. In 1969, researchers on the island of Crete investigated a medical mystery. Why do these people have the lowest heart disease rates in the developed world? They studied olive oil, wine, fish. But there was something else. Something the old women gathered from their gardens every morning. They called it glystrida. We call it purslane, Portulaca oleracea. When lab results came back from Minnesota, nobody believed them. This garden weed contained the highest omega-3 content of any green plant ever tested, higher than most fish. The 1986 paper was largely ignored, but 4,000 years earlier, someone in ancient Greece already knew. In 1989, archaeobotanists excavating a Bronze Age site in Santorini found carbonized purslane seeds deliberately stored in clay jars alongside barley and lentils. Not weeds. Food that was cultivated, harvested, preserved. In Ozark caves, 1,200-year-old purslane seeds were stored with squash and sunflower. In China, medical texts from 2000 BCE list purslane as a superior herb, cooling to the blood, beneficial for the 5 organs. They called it machisian, the horsetooth vegetable. The Hopi, Navajo, and Zuni called it verdolaga. They ate it raw in salads, cooked like spinach, used it medicinally for burns and intestinal ailments. Aboriginal Australians knew it as munyaru, gathering it for tens of thousands of years. So how does a plant this useful become one of the most hated weeds in modern history? The answer begins with the lawn. Purslane is a succulent with jade-colored stems that sprawl across the ground. Small, paddle-shaped leaves, rubbery to the touch. Yellow flowers bloom for a single morning, producing seed pods containing up to 50 black seeds each. The genius is invisible. Purslane uses CAM photosynthesis. Most plants open their stomata during the day to capture carbon dioxide, but that causes water loss. Purslane opens its stomata at night when it's cool, stores carbon dioxide malic acid, then processes it during the day with stomata closed. This means it survives on just 2 inches of rainfall per year. Less water than Death Valley receives. Every stem fragment that touches soil roots. Cut it into pieces. Each becomes a new plant. One plant produces 240,000 seeds. Those seeds remain viable in soil for 40 years. It thrives in pH 4.5 to 8.0, grows in compacted dirt, tolerates heat up to 45 degrees Celsius. Scientists found it growing in Phoenix parking lot cracks, where ground temperatures exceed 70 degrees Celsius. Now let's talk about what's inside those leaves. In 2014, University of Texas researchers analyzed 47 fruits and vegetables for nutrient density, looking for powerhouse foods. Purslane scored at the top. Dr. Artemis Simopoulos found 400 nanograms of omega-3 ALA per 100 grams of fresh leaves. Most fish oil supplements contain 300 to 500 milligram per capsule. People pay $40 for 60 capsules. Purslane gives you the same in a handful of leaves. Free. But there's more. 7x more beta-carotene than carrots. Highest vitamin E of any leafy vegetable. Betalin antioxidants, usually only in beets. Melatonin content. 10 to 20 times higher than most vegetables. Rich in potassium, magnesium, calcium, Iron. 93% water content. Hydrates while nourishing. One researcher called it a multivitamin you can grow in a crack in the sidewalk. So if a plant this nutritious exists, grows without human effort, survives drought and heat, why isn't it in every grocery store? Why isn't it taught in schools? Because you cannot sell someone something they can grow for free. And when free food threatens a $175 billion industry, that food becomes the enemy. The American lawn didn't exist before the 1950s. After World War II, the GI Bill financed millions of new homes. With them came a new ideology, the perfect lawn. Grass, mowed short. Green, uniform. No weeds. Purslane thrives in disturbed soil created by construction. New suburbs were purslane paradise. Homeowners panicked, so they called landscaping companies. Those companies saw opportunity. In 1947, Scott's company began marketing herbicides. By the 1950s, they sold the idea that weeds were the enemy. The chemical was 2,4-D, developed during World War II for biological warfare. After the war, chemical companies needed new markets. Lawns became the battlefield. Then came homeowners associations. Today, over 40 million Americans live in HOA communities with bylaws prohibiting noxious weeds. Purslane is often listed. You can be fined for allowing food to grow on your own property. Scott's Miracle-Gro, now a $3.2 billion corporation, markets Weed Be Gone with a purslane photo and red slash. For $25.99, you can poison the most nutritious plant on your property. The lawn care industry is worth $115 billion annually. It depends on enemies. If people realized the weeds they're poisoning are more nutritious than grocery store food, the entire industry collapses. Purslane cannot be sold at scale, grows too fast, germinates in days, matures in weeks, spreads aggressively through stem fragments. One plant produces 240,000 seeds viable for 40 years. Doesn't transport well, wilts quickly, bruises easily. Cannot be patented, wild plant, public domain. But it gets worse. Purslane threatens existing markets. Omega-3 supplements, $4.1 billion market vitamin E supplements, $1.8 billion market leafy greens market, $12 billion annually. Purslane offers all of this for free. If people knew they could eat purslane instead of buying supplements, these markets shrink. The suppression has been so complete that most Americans under 40 have never heard the word purslane. They've seen the plant everywhere, but they have no name for it except that weed. When you erase the name, you erase the knowledge. When you erase the knowledge, you erase the power. Purslane's power is that it makes you independent of supplements, grocery stores, the entire industrial food system. That independence is what they cannot allow. While Americans poisoned purslane, other people never stopped eating it. In Greece, glystrita is gathered and eaten continuously for 4,000 years. Blanched, dressed with olive oil and lemon. Simply food. In Turkey, semizotu appears in salads with yogurt, garlic, walnuts. In Lebanon, bakle is standard in fattoush salad. In Mexico, verdolagas never disappeared, sold in every mercado, cooked with pork, scrambled with eggs. In China, ma chi xian is sold in markets, appears on menus, listed in medicine texts for 4,000 years. No interruption, no forgetting. What happened in America? Immigrant communities brought the knowledge, but their children wanted to fit in. Being American meant eating American food. The younger generation stopped gathering wild greens. By the 1960s, the break was nearly complete. Suburban children grew up with perfect lawns and no knowledge of edible plants. But the knowledge didn't die. It went underground. In immigrant communities, in rural areas, in families maintaining traditional foodways. Then, in the 2010s, something unexpected happened. Urban foraging became trendy. By 2015, high-end restaurants featured purslane on menus, a side dish in Manhattan. The same plant growing free outside. Farmers markets began selling verdolagas for $4 to $8 per pound. Foraging courses taught identification. By 2018, purslane seeds were back in catalogs as heirloom vegetables. In 2020, when the pandemic disrupted supply chains, foraging surged. Purslane identification videos got millions of views. Comments: "My grandmother used to eat this. I've been poisoning this for years." But here's what matters most. We're entering agricultural collapse. The American West faces a mega drought, the worst in 1,200 years. California's Central Valley, producing 25% of America's food, is fallowing fields. No water. Lettuce requires consistent irrigation and cool temperatures. As climate change intensifies, conventional greens become impossible to grow in many regions. But purslane? Built for this. Survives on 2 inches of rain annually. Thrives in 45 degrees heat. Grows in degraded soil. Requires no inputs, no irrigation, no fertilizer. In 2021, University of Arizona researchers highlighted purslane as climate resilient, noting it may represent viable food in a warming world where water scarcity limits traditional crops. For 70 years, we spent billions poisoning a plant that could save us. Now, as climate unravels, we realize the answer was always there, growing in the cracks, waiting. The knowledge was never lost. It was suppressed. Every person who learns purslane is food becomes harder to control. Every person who stops poisoning their lawn threatens the lawn care industry. Every person who eats purslane instead of buying supplements shrinks pharmaceutical markets. The industries profiting from your ignorance cannot survive your knowledge. That's why purslane is still called a weed, still shown with a red slash on herbicide bottles. So here's what you do. Learn to recognize it. Stop poisoning it. Harvest it. Eat it. Save seeds. Teach your children. Share with neighbors. Reclaim the name. The plant that feeds you without asking for anything. That's purslane. That's the food they taught you to destroy. This knowledge is here, waiting in the cracks, growing wild, free. All it asks is that you remember. If this unveiled something for you, subscribe to Veiled Earth. The next unveiling comes soon.